Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Let's Scream.
Hello,
I'm Maude. And Allie.
Oh yes, hi. I yelled over you as you said your name, and I was like, I don't know what's happening.
We're gonna get this down at some point. We're gonna figure out our cool intro.
Or it's just gonna be rough forever going forward, and people will learn to love it.
Exactly. It's gonna be our reputation, right? We're just gonna be the chicks who don't know how to begin a show.
Exactly. At least we're not coming in mid-conversation. We're at least trying to do it.
Exactly. We are trying. So yeah, anyways, thanks for watching us again. It means we must be doing something right. So thank you. Hopefully you are enjoying the show. Quick little reminder, if you are, we are part of the Infamous Horror Network. We have a Patreon going on, and this is not just for us, but it's for all the shows that are part of this network. So if you are into horror and you want to get some little special extras, and you just really want to support this project, there's, I believe, 14 shows so far, that are going on. So also we very strongly invite you to check out all of the other shows on YouTube and on Facebook. You can find all of the info on the Infamous Horror page. Also, scrolling at the bottom, you have the Patreon link for the Infamous Horror and our good old fave Twitter. That's, to chat with us. Yeah, and let us know what you like. If you would like us to talk about something in specific, if you would like us to talk with someone in specific, or if you just want to,
hang out and chat with us.
Exactly. Feel free to drop us a line. Awesome. So yeah, well, Allie, have you watched anything great this week?
Oh my God, I honestly don't even know what's even happened this week. What day is it at this point?
I think we're Sunday right now.
Sunday. Okay, I must have watched. You go first and let me think about all the show. You know what? I letterbox everything that I watch. I should know what I
did.
I have to, otherwise this is what happens where I'm like, I have no idea what I watched.
Yeah. Well, I watched 2 films. I'm still catching up on a lot of stuff that I missed. I watched The Lodge, finally.
Oh, did you like it?
I am ambivalent on it. I'd say give me a few days. I still need to figure out what I like it. In theory, I still just haven't fully processed where it fits within my realm of tastes. But yeah.
That is fair. I watched the amazing Hammer film featuring the Shaw brothers, The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, which I had to watch for another podcast.
Nice.
And I also watched House of Gucci.
Oh, how was that? It's not horror, but
it's not
there part of it that could make it horror or not?
I mean, it's very true crime because, a murder happens.
Yeah.
And Jared Leto's makeup's pretty horrific, but I actually don't hate his character. I feel like I might be one of the very few people who aren't mad about his character being a caricature of a real life person. But it was fun. I'm just how did he get this role? Did he go into the audition with that accent being hey, put me in your movie? I can
is it that on the nose?
It's like that. It's very funny.
Wow. Okay.
And I love Lady Gaga, and Ridley Scott made, Alien and stuff. So you can't hate.
Yeah. Okay, well, I might check it out over the holiday break. That would be great.
You know what?
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, because you might be watching this in January, but we are right before the holidays. So
yes, it is mid-December at this point.
Yes.
Filming, so we can get ahead of all the holiday schedule.
Yeah, exactly. We're just breaking the, YouTube movie magic or whatever that is.
Exactly. We're breaking the weird YouTube fourth wall.
Yeah. Well, anyways, but yeah, I think I know what you're gonna say, and I would think I was probably gonna say the same thing. The second movie, which I know we both watched.
Yes, we both watched it this week.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure to finally see Bingo Hell.
I did too, and it was beautiful.
And it is amazing, and we are super stoked because the director extraordinaire of that film, Gigi Saul Guerrero, is our guest this week.
Woo!
Yay! But yeah, without further ado, if you do not know what Bingo Hell is, or if you have not seen it, here's the trailer to give you a little taste and hopefully inspire you to, watch it right after this podcast, or pause us and go watch it. But
Watch it.
don't
and
forget to
then come
come back for the interview.
It's on Amazon Prime. It's free right now. Go do it.
It's amazing. So here we go.
I look around this beautiful community of yours. You know what I see? Each and every one of you has a big dream. We all have that one thing that we still yearn for. They say money can't buy you happiness. I disagree.
Looks like a goddamn casino.
Welcome to the game. Are you feeling lucky?
Ese hombre is a snake.
Bingo! I got bingo!
I'm gonna be a winner.
Are you feeling lucky?
We are all that's left. We have to do something.
What's the plan, Granny?
Should I grab my shotgun?
Are you feeling lucky?
We're probably all gonna die.
We may be older, but we still have plenty of life to live.
Who's ready to play the game?
So without further ado, let's bring in Gigi. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you guys.
Yeah,
I know
thank
you were commenting about your intros. I think they were so genuine and funny. I was laughing the whole
Thank
time.
you. I think we're gonna forever be awkward. That should be
I
our
love
thing.
it.
Yeah, that's
Weird, good. We are the weirdos, mister.
Exactly.
So it's perfectly fine.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on our show. I gotta say, and in like I have to gush a little bit before we start the interview. I gotta say, I really, really, really loved Bingo Hell. It resonated so much with me because I'm someone who was raised, but like I wasn't raised by my grandma, but like she had she played a very important part in my life, and she's still around, and she's still such a badass.
I love that.
Yeah, and she loved watching like action movie. Like, she came to see Kill Bill with me and everything. So I always thought like I have a cool badass grandma. So when I saw that movie, it just like resonated like so much with me, just watching it and just seeing like all of these like, badass like older women character and just especially seeing the dedication at the end to your grandma, or like the inspiration. It's just like I don't know, it's just like it has a special place in my heart also for that.
That's
So yeah, I just
amazing.
figured I wanted to say that. Yeah, so
That's awesome. That really was the goal. It
Awesome.
really was the goal to resonate with somebody in people's lives that they may have, whether it's a grandma, an aunt, an uncle, next door neighbor, a teacher. It's just, I find senior citizens don't have that badass light in movies enough. And so this really was dedicated to them. So that's so cool. You made me so happy.
Yeah. Oh, yay, glad I did. Well, yeah, thank you. And the movie made me happy. And also, I agree with you. And what I thought was really great is how it's not made to be comical. Like, I've seen those movies that, like, star like more like senior citizen, but it's like meant as a butt as a butt of a joke, So
Yes.
whereas like in this, this felt genuine, like it came from like a true place of like love and respect, So that was really great.
I mean, honestly, those actors,
that.
they're like truly, they're like that. Like they
Amazing.
really were so natural and so genuine. So a lot of the quirkiness and the silliness that they would bring, that was just them. And like we all know our grandparents, they're crazy and stubborn people, the most stubborn creatures on earth. And these incredible actors just already had that sass and that charm. So it really was just funny because that's how they are. So it didn't have to feel forced at all, and so that was really fun. That was a lot of fun. Intimidating, but it was really fun.
Nice. Amazing.
That's so good. So you co-wrote this film with Harry Blackshear and Shane McKenzie, correct?
Yeah, correct.
How was it like working
correct.
with those two and getting this whole story put together? Was there like ever like fights in the writing room where you're like, no, this has to be in there, and they were like, no, no way?
No, that's a great question. I mean, luckily, this story came from Shane and myself originally. This was totally our idea together. And, once pandemic hit, it hit the whole world out of left field. It was really hard to try and just get the script together that Perry really came last minute to just help us. How can we condense this to just be shot solo budget so quick and during the peak of COVID? We shot this film right before vaccines were a thing. This was one of the first movies at the beginning of the year to be shot in early January, when still everybody was figuring out how the sets even work during this. And so Perry really helped us on that creative side afterwards. But at the beginning, it was a ton of fun because one day, just one regular random day, I called up Shane just to catch up. And he says, Gigi, you're not going to believe where I was last night. And I was like, oh, what, are you okay? Like, you sound like you're in trouble. He's like, dude, I went to check out my mother-in-law's bingo hall. Her and her friends are crazy. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, they're all so old. And I felt so out of place. They were like religious at this game. And he was just like expressing all this enthusiasm and fear of the bingo hall he went to with his mother-in-law. And he lives in Austin. So he's very expressive, wonderful people there. And I said to him, that's really funny, man, because my grandma loves bingo, but the Mexican one, Loteria is called. And I was explaining to him, she plays that with her sisters in Cancun all the time. It's like their game. So just through this funny conversation, sharing how they have lucky charms to really want to win, and how it's not just a sport, it's like a religion, and like all these things, like it really brings their community together. Shane and I, we just kind of said the magical words to each other of, I wonder what would happen if we took bingo away from them. I was like, oh, I said, put on a helmet, buddy, because my grandma's going to kick someone's ass. She might kill someone. And so that really started the idea of like, oh, this could be really cool. So it just it became this awesome, fun film that Blumhouse really, really enjoyed the idea of senior citizens fighting back for their bingo hall. But it was a very big idea at the time, which we all felt confident in doing. And it was about an entire town. And it was like a big scaled project. And then, so many things happened that the movie, I think easily 3 or 4 times the movie got shut down. We're not doing it. It's not happening. We're doing it. It's not happening. It kept going back and forth because nobody knew what the world had coming, right? During 2020. So it was a lot of rewrites to really figure out how can we shoot this with no money, no time. But coming from Culture Shock, my feature debut, I was like, we can do this. Oh, we can do this. Don't you worry. But it was really ambitious. It was a really tough shoot. But yeah, I mean, Perry helped us out in the writing so much to see how we can just make it just such a smaller scale film. But you know what I tell everybody that starts in movies is all these struggles happen for a reason, and all these changes you go through that break your heart, at the end of the day, they do make the movie better without you knowing. You realize it after when it's done or while you're shooting, like, oh, this really is better, because you condense things, you compromise, and you keep things so linear, which helps you out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that definitely comes true. And what I feel like, is great is that even though that the idea was like pared down, it still has its heart. Like, it has a heart and it has a soul. And that's like the most important part, right, of any movie. And to me, I guess, like, just to kind of segue, because you also mentioned Culture Shock, something that strikes me is that there's I could see a bit of a social commentary as well. Like, I mean, Culture Shock
Yeah.
is obviously a social commentary,
Oh
right?
yeah, that was like
But
in your face. In
exactly.
your face. We got something to talk about.
Exactly. But I felt like I was surprised by Bingo Hell, and it's like about how much like it has to say about like, like, well, to me what I felt like both like gentrification, but also
Yes.
like people's obsession with money and like wanting like, and I feels like the whole like the dream, right, of winning the lottery and like just having that new life.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was really interesting, and these are very strong social commentary, and they're interwoven in such they're so ingrained in part of the story. I'm
Thank you.
curious, do they usually, like, as a creator, like, that process, do you like, where does that side of it come, like, is it like completely organic? Do you sometimes consciously decide, oh, I'd like to, like, address that, like, put that social commentary, infuse it in the story?
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious about that process of like, because you have
Yeah.
such a strong social voice as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. With Bingo Hell, definitely the goal, we wanted people to have fun. We wanted people to invite their grandparents to watch a horror movie, which does not happen very often.
Yeah.
But as Shane and I were creating the story, we're big fans of characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it always feels natural when you start creating the characters, what themes start to come in. And when we were talking about, all right, so what are some of the things that we can break that stereotype with seniors in this case, in this example? And a lot of the times we were like, well, you know what? The stereotype of them is really the weak and old all the time. And it just kind of started going into the conversation of how they get scammed with phone calls, how it's so easy for them to, not get help at the bank. And like, we just kind of started talking about how little control they have and trust the older you get. And because they're so cranky,
Mm-hmm.
right? Beautiful, cranky people. And from those conversations, just talking about the stereotypes we want to break on these lead characters as we're creating a story about it. Gentrification was the first thing that came to our minds, and how no matter where you live, you have seen it. You see it as you leave from your door to work. You will drive by a gentrified street, even, or town. And so, that's how we got inspired, because we were like, there's yet to be a genre movie that actually talks about that, and how these people have no control
Mm-hmm.
over that. What happens when, these big Elon Musk people show up and take over? You can't do anything. So that to me is always really fun, to really pair the social commentary that fits within the world of your lead characters. And what are those struggles that they are most likely going through? And that helped me so much with Culture Shock. So much when it came to doing those heavy rewrites, that when I came in, what are those struggles to cross the border? What kind of desperation do you need to be in to want to risk your life like that? So I always like to ask myself those questions in the process when it comes to my lead characters. And yeah, that's how they come natural. Sometimes I draw a blank, and then you don't know anything. Wake up the next day, you gotta think about it again. But it's always super helpful to do that. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, your cast is amazing. When you were like putting this whole thing together, like, did you have certain people in mind, like
Girl.
Jake or like Adriana Barrera? Like,
Girl, that cast. Let me tell. Thank you, Jesus. Yo, as just creating it before Perry came in, and before even talking to Blumhouse about this film, Shane and I, we were like, okay, we need a cranky Mexican woman. Who's that abuela? That just represents grandmas in the world. And just at the top of our heads, we were like, oh, wouldn't it be so amazing to get Oscar nominee Adriana Barrera? We're like, okay, we can dream about it. So we were literally writing the story with her in mind, not even thinking she's gonna say yes, because we're little people and she's a big person, And so we wrote her with her in mind. There was just nobody else. And when it came to, this movie's gonna happen, let's start, let's go. Casting was like, I know you love Adriana Barraza. I know I was like, yes. What you mean? To keep talking. They're like, listen, she's not going to audition for this. She's an offer only type of lady with a very certain budget or whatever. But you coming from culture shock, you're Latino, you're young, you're from Mexico too. Why don't you write her a letter and we will send it to her? Maybe she'll respond. I was like, you know what? We got nothing to lose. So I got my sister. I'm like, Shadan, help me write the biggest love letter ever. And so my sister helped me write this letter for Adriana. It was a crazy love letter of like, you're amazing. I love you. Your movie this, your movie that, blah, blah, blah. Little did I expect Adriana to request a Zoom meeting with me. And long story short, the Zoom meeting, I was like, hello. And she's like, oh, hi. And she's like, this letter, nobody has written me a letter before. I wanted to meet you. And I didn't know you made Culture Shock, and I'm a big fan. I was like, ah! And funny enough, at that time, we didn't have a script. We just had a treatment. Like we didn't have much. Oh, no, sorry. We did have a script, but it was at that time where we had to just literally throw that script in the trash because of COVID and redo it to make it work, right? Make it fit the times and the budget and all this. So I had nothing to show her. I really didn't. And just from meeting me and my energy, and I made her laugh, and I told her what this character means to me. And I basically told her, you're going to be portraying my abuela, literally my grandma, who's this, who's that. And you are the person to really portray this for everybody. And she just fell in love with the idea without even knowing the script or hearing it, reading it. She said, okay, I want to do this movie. I haven't been in a horror movie or the lead in so long. I want to do it. I said, oh, do you need to read? No, I'll read it later. Let's just sign. And so I hung up and I called Blumhouse. She said, yes, get her to sign before she says no. So it was awesome. Like she really wanted to do this before even knowing everything she was going to do. So it was super cool. Every actor in this movie has such a background to them, including, who plays Dolores, L. Scott Caldwell, is a Tony Award winner.
Oh,
That
that's
lady is, she's really precise. Like she definitely was that actor that I think it can be very easy for first-time filmmaker to be very intimidated. Not that she's mean or anything. But she's very like precise of how she wants things, and she will call you out. I remember this quote. I think it was Christopher Nolan. He said, actors are like lie detectors. They know when they will call on your shit. And that really stuck with me, that actors are like lie detectors. And he's right. If you're not honest with an actor of why you're doing another take or why the character is in this journey of blah, 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 this, whatever you want to describe in your direction, they will call you out if you're making shit up. So, she's that lady, man. Like she knows, she will see and she will smell that fear you have. But it was really cool. And this was definitely, to end my giant ramble on it, this was definitely the kind of movie that inspired me so much to be in this position as a younger filmmaker starting out, to work with such veteran and such seasoned actors who really come from a different time. And by what I mean a different time is just the way of film sets back then were very different. The way of acting, like look at the evolution of acting, where it's come. These guys have been around for a long time, all 5 of them that acted in this film. And it was really cool to learn from them, and them being excited to work. All of them had never worked with a young director before. And that was to them super exciting to just feel in something so current, so new. And to be covered in blood and slime. So that really worked, which we can talk about in a moment. But yeah, the actors were awesome. I'm glad you brought it up, Allie, because they're what made this movie, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Like she's phenomenal in it.
Thank you.
They're all phenomenal. It's actually, I'm actually curious because I was just gonna ask like how they reacted to the horror element,
Ah,
just because there are some actors who are used to like they've made a career and like now they're called icons and then we see them in horror film all the time. But in those cases, like I don't think any of them have ever done anything
Yeah.
genre related. So
Broadway
I'm kind of
cast
intrigued about that clash.
I have the best story for you guys. So it's day one of shooting. If anybody listening, press pause because this is a spoiler alert. You have 5 seconds. Think, 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 think. Okay, they press pause. Here we go. Spoiler. So it's day one of shooting. And of course, because film makes no sense production wise, why you gonna shoot the hardest thing first? Because of budget and location and time and availability, right? For her day of shooting was Clarence's death. Of course, we're gonna start with the hardest thing to shoot. And of course, this was a test because, as you girls saw, the death scenes are very weird and wild, and they go back and forth, and it's all these crazy things. I was like, okay, we can do this. So first day of shooting is Clarence's death. Grover, the eldest actor of the ensemble, he goes to set, and I could tell he was nervous. I was like, oh, maybe it's because it's day one and we're all back from 2019. I didn't look into it much. But I could tell something was up. And he was doing his job. He was doing a really good job. But the closer it got to his death scene, the more nervous he got. Until I went up to him. I'm like, Grover, you're doing excellent. So talk to me. What's up? Oh, ma'am, my stomach really hurts. And that's why I've been going to the bathroom, he says. 'Cause I'm really nervous. I was like, oh, are you okay? Did something you ate? He's like, no. In the 45 years of my career, I have never had fake blood on me or near me ever. And I don't know what to do. What do I do? He said. And I said, well, I looked at the time. We're behind. I said, well, Grover, when I say action, you're going to close your fucking eyes and you keep acting. You do not want that shit in your eyes. So you're going to feel a lot of blood and you just go for it. But you close your eyes. That's all you need to do. He's like, oh, okay. That's it. I was like, that's it. Close your eyes and do not swallow the fake blood. Okay. You got it. All right, everybody, here we go. And then it's like 3, 2, 1. And he's like, and I'm like, action. And he's like with his eyes closed and acting. And I was laughing so hard because I could tell it was his first time, but he went for it. And he was that one actor that a lot of things he did in this film were his first time, like laughing so hard. You know what character I'm talking about. He was always like, like laughing. And I always had to yell on the megaphone, Grover, pace yourself. Grover, pace yourself. Because I always thought any of these actors were going to pass out at some point because I didn't want them to hurt their hip or something. Oh, girl, we definitely started on the roughest day, but all of them enjoyed it. Once they had felt blood or slime in their hands, they were like, ooh, like they were so into it. All of them. Adriana, at the last scene of the movie, she was hitting, who she's supposed to be killing. She was hitting the bags so hard of blood that were splashing her. She wouldn't stop. She just, all of us didn't know how to call cut on her because she was like, ah! All the actors, when it came to, if you're still listening, this was one last spoiler. All the actors, when it came to the climax of the movie, where's that hilarious beatdown, fighting, they were not acting, girls. They were terrifying. All these actors were absolutely scary because I think they were carrying years of, I don't know what the fuck, of grudges, of anger. I don't know. But they terrified all the stunt performers because they were like, oh my God. And they were just going for it. Hijo de puta. And like screaming, motherfucker. Like all these things these actors, I was like, I don't know what is going on, but they are just letting out steam. But they had a blast. Okay, you can come back, for the listeners. But these actors were when it came to the genre world, they very much enjoyed it. Yes,
That's
very much.
amazing. It must have been such a fun directing
It was
experience.
fun. You know, no matter how ambitious and truly freaking hard this movie was to shoot, it was a lot of fun. And I could tell a lot of the crew, and especially this cast, just wanted to make something after such a tough time for everybody. So it felt like a blessing to be able to make something. Of course, I wish we had more money, more time, and all these things, but thank God for an experience like Culture Shock that it helped to do something harder with the exact same amount of resources. So, you know, things are possible, and we just have to be grateful of what you can do, right? Yeah.
Okay. So veering off of filmmaking for a hot second, can we talk
Yeah.
about your career as a directing and film teacher at
Ah,
the Vancouver Film School? Is that correct?
yeah. So on my off times, because film is not consistent. I love to teach. So I went behind my film school's back and taught at the rival film school of Vancouver. I know it's terrible. Yeah, I know it's horrible. But I really just needed something that understands the schedule, because I mean that's why I'm still single. People don't like to date filmmakers because our schedule sucks. So it's the same for jobs. Nobody wants to hire me at a restaurant or Starbucks or anything because my schedule sucks, you know? So teaching really was the right choice of a place that, oh, yeah, go work. Because we love working teachers or actors or whatever. So working at Vancouver Film School is super cool. I swear the students are getting smarter though, which is making me nervous because they're so ahead. You look at TikTok and all these things, like people are these kids, man, they're not much younger than we are, and they are so ahead that I remember when I was in film school, I didn't have access to half the things these kids do. So I feel like every time I teach a new term, they're way ahead of me. The only thing though, I'll tell you girls, that I do enjoy so much is showing them classic films. It's really crazy to see how there comes almost like a gap that it's from late 70s and earlier. They really haven't seen much. And it's really sad.
That
So
is
it's-
sad.
I don't know. It's one thing I've noticed a lot, like, or even films in the 80s or something like that. But just this last couple terms I taught, I really leaned into the early work of Scorsese. Goodfellas, Casino, movies like that are just so powerful and so good from way back. Even other movies like Taxi Driver, let's say.
Oof.
Pretty much a Robert De Niro class, seems like.
Of course.
But every single student in my class never even heard of them. And so
How do
it
you not know what Taxi Driver is? Or
I
Casino?
know, it's
It's
such
so
a
movie.
classic. Oh my
I know, it's crazy. So that to me, I find it such a great opportunity to encourage, not force, but encourage them to open their mind to where all this came from, you know, even way before black and white, way before. So I love teaching. It's very rewarding job. They all look at you like, like, you know, they're like your biggest fans. And I think they're mostly fans of my dog because I take my dog to the school.
Yeah.
So I think it's my dog that makes my classes interesting.
No,
But
you
I
do.
love teaching. I love teaching. It's a blast. It's a blast.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
also, I think they relate because they're like, oh, she's just starting out. So I get to really share with them a lot of the fuck ups that I do, a lot of the things that I'm like, don't do this, guys. This just happened to me on the last film. Like, you know, they're able to be like, oh, wow. And with Bingo Hell, I did a screening in Vancouver a couple weeks ago, and all my students came, and they've never been to a screening before, so they didn't know what a screening is like. And it was so much fun. So it's really cool to just celebrate film with the new generation. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. When you're teaching, is there like a go-to film that you're like, if you want to be a filmmaker, this is the film to watch?
Oh, I mean, every class I base it so different because I have a character class, I have working with actors class, I have suspense class. So
Oh,
I really break down my
suspense class. You have me in
curriculum.
suspense now.
Yeah, but I always, girl, the movie that made me go to film school, and this is the one I always share, was Children of Men. Good, so good. Sorry.
Mhm.
Oh, that was really high pitched. Love Children of Men. Oh my God. I that movie changed my life. And I always mention that one. Always. Every time. Every time I say that one. Because that one for me was when I think I was 15. 15 or 16 when that movie came out. So I like to relate movies that are in the time I grew up. So that's the one I say. And then my list of horror is like massive. But
Of
yeah,
course.
that one's like to me a masterpiece of a film.
That's amazing. It must be really interesting seeing how the younger generation react to like the pacing. Like, that's kind of like a bit of an aside, but like the pacing
Yeah.
of these older films, because that's something I'm revisiting right now. A lot of the classics from like the 60s and 70s, either I haven't seen or only saw on VHS back when VHS were like, the only option. So, and it just like struck me about how film has evolved so much on all front, like
Yeah.
from the acting style to the directing style to like
For
all of these
sure.
innovations. And I just think it's fascinating. I'm kind of like interested to know in this like TikTok generation, and
Yeah.
very much like social media, like fast-paced, video driven, how that relationship like operate itself, and you as a creator, like in the middle of it, like what's your take also on that? Yeah.
I think it's because of this evolution of social media and how you really see content in short form.
Mhm.
I think that is maybe not the reason, but a big element of why our attention span is so much not shorter, but like you really need to be captivated in 30 seconds. Like you
Mhm.
have to, or less, because things are so easy like this. You click away.
Yeah.
You put Netflix and all these streaming platforms a click away to move on. Before, it's a whole ordeal. You got to leave the theater. You got to, you're paying for cable. You're doing all these things to really watch content.
Mhm.
And it's really a commitment, I find.
Mhm.
Um so but the evolution of it, you're right, Maud. Like it's the world building in films is not the same. We used to take our time and building worlds, characters, their environment. We didn't start off movies always with a death scene or the flashback or like in the first intro, the cold open. Those weren't super popular back then. It really was this build. Sure, there was things that captivate you, but what captivated us was such a more of the technical side, I think, more the cinematic vision of what
Mhm.
we're seeing, like, wow. So now I think we have it harder, and I think us three know we
Mhm.
have it really hard in the genre space, because I think we got to captivate people even faster, and studios still want PG-13 rating. They still want to get the new generation's attention too.
Mhm.
So I think that challenge is really hard, because us hardcore horror fans, or like the old schoolers, we're passionate, so if you mess it up, we're gonna say boo really loud.
Yeah.
And it's not at all the same as the jump scares and the stuff you see now of what we used to like back in the day. Look at The Exorcist. It takes 45 minutes to anything to happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? But
It
it
does.
captivates you the whole time. You can't show that now as
No.
easy to the younger generation. It's stupid. The makeup's fake. That's not what I'm
You
trying to
know?
show you. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of things, but that's my rant.
No, but it's fascinating, and it's great because it like segues into also another one of the questions that I had, is just because you've done a lot of shorts as well, like
Yes.
independently. Like you have such an interesting body of work when it comes to like short film. And you've also had the chance to work with like studios, you know, on your feature project. And I'm kind of curious, you know, in terms like how has it been for you from a, like a storyteller perspective, you know, just like, you know, the experience of working with studios and their expectation and like, you know, in terms of like your story, the story you want to tell versus what they want, you know, and what they want to show. So how do you feel like, how does it compare in terms of like what you do independently versus what you do in the studio, and how much, I guess, ownership in the end, not so much ownership, but like creative ownership over
Yeah.
like, you know, what you really want to do. Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I think we as filmmakers need to learn that the biggest lesson, it's not just grow thick skin and defend yourself and blah blah. You also don't want to be difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I've really learned coming from having full creative freedom, full control, full everything in so many short films where you direct, you produce, you're the one doing the
Mhm.
crafty, you're doing everything.
Yeah.
You come to these shows where they're really, look, the resources, it's not yours, but the
Mhm.
opportunity is. So you have to remind yourself of that and how you're given an opportunity.
Mhm.
And I find, you know, I've met a lot of filmmakers that complain a lot of, I don't have creative freedom. Oh, I'm getting these shitty notes and blah, blah, blah. But you have an opportunity.
Mhm.
So the lesson I learned always, not just to be kind, and I think we all should have common sense, but it really is to learn how to compromise, learn how to pick your battles. And I find with these feature films, that's a game you need to play with the studio, and you got to be really good at it. You know, I'm still learning it, but it's about compromising. It's about knowing which babies you're gonna kill, which is the worst phrase we have, but that's how we say it in film, right? And
Yeah.
what battles you're gonna pick, because you're not gonna win everything. So really choose what you really want to stay and
Mhm.
agree with the things they want. Because at the end of the day, and something we have to tell ourselves all the time is they too want to make this a good movie. Their intention is for them to also have a good movie, and you want it to be a good movie. So it's an interesting balance. I'm still learning it from the last two movies, but luckily Blumhouse, you know, they work with these low budgets. They work with these insane short days of 16 days to make a movie. They get it, which helps. So I'm excited for the next films, you know, that will be 20 million, let's hope. Thank you, Jesus. Let's hope. It goes to that it keeps getting higher. I'm still in the super, super low 1 million range. That's fine. But you have to just remember it's only going to get harder and more intense. So stay tactful and graceful and
Yeah.
pick your battles. It's a really tough game for sure.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to explain because I feel like I'm just learning how to play ball.
Well, you've had a lot of success with your feature films, but also you're directing TV. You got to direct episodes of the Purge television show and be a part of that, like, honestly, like one of my favorite franchises. Like, how
That's
did it feel?
awesome.
Yeah, how did it feel getting involved with the Purge? And like, should
Oh,
we
so
have
much
a
fun.
Purge?
Oh, so much fun. No, definitely directing the action-packed episode in season 2 was so cool. I had too much fun because I'm a big fan of The Purge too.
Mhm.
So I really understood the vision and everything. And I got to flip a giant van in this crazy car crash, and it just
Nice.
gave me so much opportunity. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. It was a blast. So hopefully, you know, now just coming back from COVID and finishing bingo hell, I really personally want to get more into TV. I think we're very lucky that TV is so elevated now. It's really good storytelling. I want to be part of that. Like I want to be part of people's awesome shows. Like,
Yeah.
fuck,
It's good.
yeah.
There's also just so many more horror shows nowadays, and there's
Yeah.
so many opportunities to also binge shows. Like, I remember growing up, and if you weren't at the TV by 8 o'clock, you just didn't see that episode.
I remember very clearly people just being like, tonight is Breaking Bad, like I remember that it was a commitment for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I want to talk about culture shock for a little bit. Like I know Ali also had some question about it. I mean, culture shock to me is such a great, like, gut punch of a movie, especially given the social climate when it was released. Like I'd like to know a bit more about like that, like how was it like for you, both the process of making the film, but also the reception around it and everything.
Yeah, no, it was really I love this question because it was really crazy. Definitely, I didn't expect to be allowed these wild changes on the script to be so, in your face of
Yeah.
what we got going on in the border crisis, unfortunately, still going on,
Hmm.
is something that needs to be talked about. And I think I didn't come into it as like, I'm a filmmaker and I got an opportunity. I really felt this was a responsibility of a movie to make because being Mexican, being an immigrant too, I felt this was really a responsibility for me to be able to talk about it, to be able to tell a story about it. So I really put my whole heart in culture shock. Um, and even while we were making the movie, a lot of the times I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like I felt, all right, let's do it. Especially, spoiler alert in the big reveal in the VR when they all wake up like of in these cages basically. The script wasn't like that. It was very like a nice, clean Twilight Zone laboratory. It looked very, very pristine and cool, very sci-fi.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, we're going hostile. I was like, this is how it's got to feel in these cages. This is what these people feel, man. It's disgusting. And so it really was a lot of just being blunt with all this. Just I didn't want to be subtle at all. So the process was really intense. I never got questioned, which is fine. Even at the end of Culture Shock when I make fun of Trump with his tweets, I didn't get questioned. I just went for it, wrote it in.
That's
but
amazing.
what but what was really hard in the process of Culture Shock was after. The biggest fight I've had to do in my career was on Culture Shock was to keep the Spanish. I came to, we did director's cut, producer's cut, all these cuts that everybody was happy with. We're weeks away from the deadline. And suddenly I get into this big meeting where I'm being told I have to cut out the Spanish. And this movie has to be more English than Spanish because the audiences don't like to read subtitles. This is before Parasite won, right? Or during the time Parasite won the
Was this
Oscars.
before The Quiet Place as well? Because that was an entirely subtitled movie, and everyone had no problem watching that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so it really was, well, the statistics are that the Hulu audience doesn't like to read subtitles. I was like, yes, but I still delivered you exactly what I gave you on paper 2-3 months ago. Like, I'm not going to, no. So it became a very big problem. And that really was, for example, what we were talking about earlier. That was really one of the fights I'm going to pick to do.
That's
I'm going to
amazing.
do a very big stink about this one. It was heartbreaking because we were still at that time like, are you kidding me? And it was a lot of bringing up like, did you not see what just won last month at the Oscars? A
Hmm.
Korean fucking movie. Like, come
Mhm.
on.
Yeah.
So that was really hard. Luckily, still won the battle, had to do a tiny compromise and, did that weird montagey intro of Culture Shock that was not there. That was in English. So I just
Mhm.
took deleted scenes of all the news footage I didn't use,
Mm.
laid it at the front, starts in English, and then it'll get back to English at some point. Luckily that did it. But of course it was a much bigger fight than that.
Yeah.
But afterwards too, the other thing that was really hard to finish your question, Maud, was when the movie came out. When the movie came out, since it's a very political film, we're still 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and we are the worst rated movie on IMDb. And it's just, it's a very interesting thing to watch because you see all these people that are so Trump supporters are so, privileged. And I was getting a lot of hate on social media, on Twitter especially, but I loved it. I loved being a little troll, saying stuff back that my manager had to tell me, Gigi, stop interacting. But I couldn't help it. I couldn't help interact and make fun of them back. But it was a lot of like, you're not even American, stop making movies about our country, and like all these wild things. And like, I got a lot of hate for culture shock, but at the same time I got a lot of love, and I got a lot of opportunities and doors open, and broke the stereotype. Blumhouse went for a movie that was 50% in a foreign language, so it really brought a lot of great things, that film. And I learned a lot of how crazy people can be. I still sometimes see things on Twitter and random things about it. But heck, I think bad promo is great promo too. And if people, I think at the end of the day, if you're the filmmaker and you can make people have a conversation about your movie, good or bad, you resonated with them in some way. You made them react in some level. And you did your job. So I think I did my job. So,
Yes, you did.
yeah.
That's awesome. It's such I know I speak for myself, but probably also for a lot of other people. But it's such an inspiration hearing you talk, and you are such an inspiration,
Oh, you're so
especially
kind.
in these like situation. I mean, because I think anybody who's a maker also knows how disheartening it is to
Yeah.
have people come at you for something that you spend so much time and effort making. And it's really hard to disconnect yourself, like,
Mhm.
from your work. And I think you just do this like beautifully. And also
Thank
like, yeah,
you.
it's just like hearing all of this, and that's why in those fights, I think it's just very well, personally, it's very inspiring for me to hear this. So
Oh, I agree. It's very inspiring.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
thanks for
And
fighting the good fight.
of course, and we have to, as women too, we have a lot of a lot of obstacles that we just have to face, but we shouldn't see that as a disadvantage. I think it makes us prove our worth and work so much harder. Even you brought up The Purge. That was not an easy. I mean, I loved working on it, but it wasn't easy coming into the room as the new director and being the youngest person in the room. It was not easy being taken seriously on the first 5 days of work. And it happens. I actually had a fight with my camera guy on The Purge because he wouldn't do what I said. And we even have this thing where, and you ladies know that if you react or you defend yourself, you're officially labeled a bitch or labeled difficult
Or
when you're
emotional or problematic. And you're like,
yeah,
you
opinionated. I've gotten a lot.
Yeah.
And you're just standing up for yourself. Whatever it may be, like, I think we just need to continue to encourage change. And one thing I always like to share is it's really up to us to also encourage each other. I still think there's more room for love between us women in the industry. I do still see and experience some competition, and it shouldn't feel like that. There's room for all of us. So, if there's a project that I'm going to say no to, no thanks, not my type. But let me tell you 3 people right there who can do it. And always leave the door open to the next person. That's how it's going to keep spiraling in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with this. I feel like I hear you, like, unfortunately, and it is, yeah, it is an unfortunate thing that some people still have that competition spirit, but it feels like there's a strong sense of community, and that's what I always found. Like especially like just meeting and like, knowing all
Yeah.
these wonderful women in horror, like there's just this feeling that's like we're all in the same fighting the same battle. Like, we're all in the trenches together. Like, let's
Yeah.
just like let's stick together and like let's pull each other up, because I mean that's what, like, that's the only way, like,
Yeah.
things are gonna actually change. So
Agreed.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna segue just back into like horror. Actually, what actually really got you into horror? Like, what got you started in that? Like, because it feels like I know you've done a lot of like, a lot of like, you've touched on different genre. Like not all of your work is horror. Some of it is more action based, but I'm just I'm curious, like what really got you started in like, horror? Like what really was your entry point, or what sparked the love?
Yeah, no, listen, I blame my mom. Like, I just wasn't allowed to watch any of this. I come from a very, very religious house, very Catholic, very Mexican. Like, it just was not allowed to watch any of that. Like, it just, no. So, you walk in our house, like Jesus and Virgin Mary everywhere. We even had like holy water under our beds. Like, it's not allowed. Everything's a devil.
Same household. I feel you.
Yeah, everything's a devil. You put your purse on the ground, and it's like the devil's gonna take your money, mija. Pick up your purse. Like that's my house. You spill the salt, put it over your shoulders.
Yep.
Yeah. Pray, mija, pray. So, oh look, I'm even wearing a Virgin Mary sweater. There
Nice.
you go.
Oh, of course. Gotta
So yeah, it all came, Maude, from curiosity.
Yeah.
Always. It was just my curiosity was very strong with this one. And until the story I've always shared, because this is what happened, was I was so curious of what is it with these movies that my mom won't let me. My most favorite thing to do at a younger age was to walk down the horror aisle at Blockbuster. I love doing that. Just to see the VHS and DVD covers of all these movies and make up what the movies were about. I was just making up what they were about in my head. And the one movie that really captivated, that started it all, that all went downhill from there, was Child's Play 2, Chucky. It was just that cover is Chucky with giant scissors cutting a little doll's head. And to me, I thought there was something so fucked up about that. I was like, that one. So I stole it. I was like 8. And I always like to say, Mexicans, we don't steal, we borrow for a long time. So I borrowed it. Just borrowed that VHS and watched it behind my parents' back. I think I must have been 8 years old, and something young. Not too old, not too young. I saw only the first 45 minutes, and it was so scary, but I loved feeling scared. I didn't understand because I was so kept away from it what fear felt like. And I use that as inspiration a lot because I experienced how movies can follow you home. And horror movies can do that. They follow you home for days, and you feel that presence of evil with you. I felt Chucky was in the room. I was like, where is he at? I was like so scared, but I was excited. So I did that when I was sneaking to see The Exorcist and all these movies. I was like, oh my God, Linda Blair is going to be in my room. Yeah. Like I was so stoked. I was so fucked up. Sorry. And that's what I like to put into the movies. That feeling that a movie can follow you home. Maybe it's not fear. With Culture Shock was a conversation. With Bingo Hell was the reminder of love for your grandparents. So if movies can do that to you, that they stick with you, you're doing your job, and that's just where it started at all, the love for it. So, and then of course with genre, I'm a big fan of grossing people out and doing gore and just really resonating in the reactions, because that's what excites me so much.
I'm glad I wasn't the only person who stole stuff from Blockbuster. Like as a child, I also would just like pocket stuff. Like I'm taking this because my mom won't let me have it.
Nice.
But also, Mo, do you remember your like the first box cover that you saw that like stuck with you?
That's a good question. I gotta say, for me, it was the first Child's Play. But mostly because it's not the first horror movie that I saw. It's the first horror movie that scared me as a kid, just because I was way too young. Like I had seen Poltergeist 3 before. Like I've already went and linked about how Poltergeist 3 like fascinated me and just really kind of got me into horror. But then I watched like Child's Play, and I remember seeing it on cable TV, and I was all like, ooh, that looks so good. I'm watching a horror movie. Then I went to the video store, and I wanted to rent it. I had seen it that day, and that night I wanted to rent it to watch it again because I had missed the beginning. And my mom, she was all like, "That's not for you," and like she put it back. And I'm all like, "Oh no, but I've already seen it." And yeah, lo and behold, that night I had a horrible nightmare that Chucky was hiding under my bed to kill me, like, you know. And I had all of these dolls in my room, and like I had like the next day I just like took all the dolls and just put them all in a different like, you know, room in the house. So I think, yeah, in that regard, for this reason, I think, yeah, the first one I remember seeing vividly was that Child's Play cover. And then after that initial reaction, every time I'd walk by the video store, I'd be all like,
Ah,
just that one, just that one. I would look at all of the horror cover, but I'm all like, not you. You're
that's
bad.
so funny.
Yeah. What about you, Allie? Do you
The
remember?
two like vivid horror movie covers I remember from seeing at like Blockbuster and stuff were, one was Dead Alive with like the open mouth and the creature inside the mouth. And then the April Fool's Day one with the girl in front of the table at the party. She has that long braid that's like a noose. And like that stuck with me for so long that I have like an original print of that poster that I still haven't framed. And I feel really bad because I framed a lot of not great posters.
That's
But I think
awesome.
watching wise, I truly do not remember what the first horror film I watched was. My older brother watched horror films constantly, and I was always his little buddy to watch them with. So like I started at like probably way too young of an age, and we were left alone a lot. So we were like, well, these movies will raise us.
Horror. Oh, horror.
Oh,
What would we
horror.
do? Yeah. Well, I guess like I have one last question because I also see the time, and I could talk with you for hours, honestly. Like it
Thank
feels
you.
like
You're
I'm
just
like
so inspiring and full of positive energy. I
I
love
know. I'm like barely touching the tip of the iceberg of all the stuff I want to ask you. I guess just on my end to conclude, like as a creator and a storyteller, I guess what drives you to a story? Like, you know, which kind of story like you like to say, like how do you just like, you know, what's your process like, or like how do you settle on something? I'm kind of curious because again, because your work has such a distinct signature, you know, whether it's visual, whether it's a type of stories, but it's never the same, you know. So so like no, that's great. Like it's, but that's like, I feel like that's a mark of like a like, you know, a true author with a vision. Like, you know, it's just like when
Thank
you
you.
when you can easily pinpoint, be like, oh yeah, this is a Gigi film, but yet it's like, you know, I can say it, I can see it's you, but it's so different, but at the same time there's something about it. So I'm kind of curious as a, like, you know, what drives you as a creator or a storyteller?
That's a great question. I don't really know, but I love just also bringing humor. If I
Yeah.
can, if I see that there's moments you can just chill and relax, I like that. I like that because I find that what we see in the news is already crappy enough. It's already hurtful enough, and
Mm.
I want to always bring escapism to people. I that's what interests me so much. I like stories that you can really feel that you're escaping reality, even if it's with horror. I want to be able to mold it and tell it differently than how it would be told on the news or on the social media every day. You look at Culture Shock or Bingo Hell, we're talking about problems we're seeing every single day.
Hmm.
So what interests me is being able to tell stories that I'm able to just mold them into something so different, into a very different reality. That really is what always captivates me. And if there is a chance to have natural humor on them, I'm a big fan. But of course, you know, I'm always trying to just elevate and go towards that children of men dream that I was just talking about, to end on those like violent dramas that have so much to say about humanity and society and us as a community. So those are really the stories of how I like to yeah.
Wonderful. Allie, any last burning question for our viewers?
Honestly, no. I'm just so like inspired by what you've been saying because I'm in the process of like editing my first feature film, and I'm just like, oh my god, yes, please just like inspire me forever.
Oh, you're so wonderful. Thank you. Well,
Right.
you know, it's thanks to, you know, platforms like this and that you guys bring us together So I'm inspired by you both, and thank you for making this a safe place to chat, and so inviting and welcoming, and just thank you. So it means a lot to filmmakers to have their work spread the way you guys are doing it. So thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and thank you for being on here. And like before we end this
Yeah.
portion of it, is there anything you can tell us about any projects that you have currently on the go?
Not for directing yet. I've been pitching a lot and developing a lot, so I've been planting a lot of seeds and see which one grows first. But on the acting side, I've been doing a lot of voiceover, as you can see my microphone, and just recently I posted on social media for my first lead role on an animated show where I'm the lead character in all the episodes. It's called Supernatural Academy. It's gonna be on Peacock. It's a YA show, super beautiful. Yeah, it's full of magic, spooky stuff, and it's about this twin sister named Misha, who I play. She discovers that she actually comes from a supernatural world, and she's not a regular girl. She's actually a werewolf. So she has to go to this academy. It's almost like Hogwarts, but like cooler, I think. So it's just her coming to terms into accepting who she really is, and it's been a blessing. That was the blessing I got during COVID when I built this booth with my friend Rainer. That was one of the first roles I booked, and it just kept me so motivated to be able to still be part of storytelling, but this case it's my voice. So I hope you all enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, we can't wait to check it out.
Yes.
Thank you. January. Check it out.
Wonderful. And for those who want to see your work or would like to hear more and follow you, where can they go?
Oh, I think I'm the only Gigi Saul Guerrero online. So easy to find me at Horror Guerrero everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok. But my TikToks are really silly. So I give a warning right now.
But they're awesome, though.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, no, follow me there and my production company, Lucha Gore. We're the only ones with that name on social media, so easy to find us, and definitely keep up because we got a lot of cool stuff.
Wonderful. Well, all the links are down below in the description to this video. Thank you so much, Gigi. Please stick around because we're going to do a little extra for a Patreon. And for the rest of you, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. And if you want to see the continuity of the party, like hear more of what Gigi has to say, just give us a follow on Patreon and you're going to have access to all the extra goodies.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So see you next time.